The San Francisco 49ers have cut their final 53-man roster. We know everything that has went down into building the 2025 roster. We will break down all the roster moves, also have some things in regards to players that were surprise cuts, guys that I do think I wasn't actually anticipating making the roster, and one guy that I do think we will have to talk about. The Drew Moss Hive is buzzing, but you guys already know what to do. Fill up that chat with the SDS, smash that like button, repost this if you're watching on X or Facebook. We're going to break down the 49ers 53-man roster for now, and we're going to talk about how it could still be changing. So let's get into it. 53-man roster reaction. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Right out the gate, my guy says, congrats, Brad. Let's go. Drew Moss makes the team. There was a lot of surprise moves today. Some moves that I wasn't anticipating. Some guys that got cut that I wasn't expecting, like Sebastian Valdez. I actually kind of thought that Sebastian Valdez might have had a better shot at making the 49ers final 53-man roster over Drew Moss, just based on how the 49ers have typically done things in the past. So I wasn't really sure that Drew Moss was going to make it. You guys know, if you've watched me, you've watched my film breakdowns, you've watched my posts on X or even film breakdowns on YouTube, you know I was a big Drew Moss guy. You know, starting back in training camp, that I had my eyes on Drew Moss. He was a guy who stood out to me early on in pads, and from there, just continued to stack, continued to build. And so I would say Drew Moss is one of the feel-good stories of the final 53-man roster as an undrafted free agent out of Colorado State. You got to tip your cap to those guys. That is pretty awesome for Drew Moss. And again, I feel very fulfilled because we already know the 49ers never listen to me when it comes to these fringe offensive linemen that I do think have potential, that I do think could grow and blossom into potential starters or role players. And they shout out the 49ers, man. They said, you know what? maybe one of these times we're gonna listen to Brad. We're gonna say, you know what, we're gonna keep that guy. So, and again, they made this decision all on their own. I had nothing to do with it. But again, very happy about it. Very, very happy about it. I think it's a solid move for the San Francisco 49ers. But let's go through all of the roster moves. Let's break it down. Let's talk about some of the other ones that were surprising. I think when it comes to surprising roster moves, I'm going to start. We already talked about Sebastian Valdez. I think that a lot of 49er fans were really hopeful that Valdez was going to make the 49ers roster. I think that he had done a solid job at building a case to be able to make the final 53. But I think that the 49ers really did decide that they needed to go in some different directions. And again, when we look at the whole scope of what the 49ers moves were, I don't know if it really puts into perspective why they released Sebastian Valdez, but the hope is that he can boomerang back around to the practice squad and remain and isn't poached by some other teams. So I mean, we know how it goes, man. We know this world. We've seen players that we thought have had a lot of potential, unfortunately, just get claimed by other teams. But as it stands right now, I would say Sebastian Valdez is one of the bigger surprises. Some other surprises for me, Curtis Robinson. I thought Curtis Robinson was going to make it, especially when I saw that the 49ers had released Chaz Surratt. I was like, oh, yeah, Curtis Robinson made it. He had the pick six in the previous preseason game. So I was like, yeah, for sure. Curtis Robinson, he's loved within the organization. He was the Walter Payton Man of the Year finalist for the 49ers. I was like, oh, yeah, he made it back from injury. I thought he was for sure going to make the roster, but they released him. So I would assume, again, if he's not claimed, he will swing back around to the practice squad. Another one that was surprising to me was seeing Russell Gage get released. I thought Russell Gage had done enough to make the roster. He is injured, so I don't know if that has something to do with it. But I thought Russell Gage had a really strong camp. And considering some of the issues that the 49ers wide receiver room has gone through in regards to injury, we found out today that Demarcus Robinson got suspended for 3 games. It was officially announced today by the NFL. So, and we had other roster moves with the wide receiver room as well. So we'll get to all of those, but these were just some of the surprising ones. And I think this right here, seeing that Drew Moss beat out Nick Zakelj, let me paint the picture for you guys. Let me paint this picture of how unlikely this situation was to play out with the San Francisco 49ers on day 1 of training camp. The 49ers starting offensive line, day 1 of training camp, it was Trent Williams, Nick Zakelj, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivitz. This guy, I'm backwards. This guy over here was in the 49ers starting lineup. He was exclusively running at starting left guard all the way until Ben Bartch returned. So this was a guy that was in the starting lineup for the whole beginning of training camp at left guard. And then he had a really rough preseason week 1. And then he got jumped by Connor Colby. And then he got jumped by Drew Moss. We were watching how that they were playing it out and using him. They would put him at center. They would put him at guard. And to me, it was so out of rotation. And I think the thing that really showcased that his job was on the line was against the Raiders, when he had been exclusively at left guard and running with the starters to start camp. And then in this game, they just put him at center and they bumped Drake Nugent out to guard, which was the position Zakelj was playing. And so what that told me was that they were truly evaluating Nick Zakelj if he could have enough value and earn enough value as a swing interior offensive lineman to make the roster, and he didn't do that. And so he gets beat out by Connor Colby, Drew Moss, Matt Hennessy. I knew that he was in a battle. I knew he was in a battle, but he's been here for 2 years. Heading into year 3, I thought he would have definitely had the upper hand in that competition, but the 49ers felt otherwise, and they go with the boy, Drew Moss. Let's go. I feel vindicated. I feel phenomenal. I feel great. because, again, you guys know I'm big on O-line evaluation. It's what I would consider to be an expertise of mine. So the fact that going from being at training camp, being able to pinpoint this guy from 150 yards away with binoculars to be like, oh, that Drew Moss guy is pretty good. Oh, is that Drew Moss versus CJ West? Is that Drew Moss versus Alfred Collins? Well, he's doing pretty good. Oh, who's this Drew Moss guy? Oh, not bad. I would say not bad for a fan sitting in the top row of the bleachers. Being, who's that guy? Who's 55? Drew Moss? Oh, crazy. Drew Moss? Undrafted free agent? That's crazy. That's crazy. So shout out to Drew Moss, man. I knew I wasn't crazy with what I was seeing. I always get accused of hyping up mid. I was like, you know what? Not today. Not today. I think Drew Moss was pretty solid, and that bared out. And so I think in the past, honestly, I think that this shows that the 49ers kind of learned a little bit, is that I really do believe that if this was two years ago, they would have cut Drew Moss. They would have cut him. They would have tried to swing him back around to the practice squad, but they clearly understand that these other teams are watching their roster, especially from an offensive line standpoint, because of the scheme that they run and the type of wide receiver, the type of offensive lineman that they go after. So I truly believe that that's what happened. I think they recognized that there was too much momentum building for Drew Moss, and they knew that if they let him go, that he probably wouldn't swing back around. While we're on the offensive line, I'm Esapole all the way through. You guys know Esapole was on the channel this offseason. We talked O-line with him. He was one of my favorite interviews of all the interviews we did. And if you guys watch the multiple prospects that we had, Femi Oladejo, Teddy Buchanan, Jackson Slater, we had a great cast of like underdogs. Like that was my favorite theme of the off-season interviews that we did. Bunch of underdogs, bunch of guys being counted out. And Esapole was one of my favorite interviews because this dude is an ascending player. This guy has only been playing football for 4 years. He's heading into his 5th year in the NFL. I had posted this. He gave up 0 pressures and 49 snaps in preseason. If you go and you search Chiefs Twitter, their fan base is having a fit. They are so upset that the 49ers, that the Chiefs released Esapole. I don't think Esapole is going to clear waivers. The 49ers have the 11th waiver, they're 11th in the waiver order. I would say that the 49ers should go after him. I don't know if they will. You know, I don't think they'll get him. I think that he'll probably get nabbed by another team. But I don't know. I don't know if the 49ers would make that move. I would, you know me, I would have done that yesterday. I would have drafted him in the 7th round. I would have selected him in the draft. I wouldn't have let Esapole get out of my grip. But that's me, right? So I think that would be a great addition. When it comes to the question was Esa versus Lampkin. I'm going Esa. The 49ers are good on interior offensive linemen. Connor Colby, obviously, you're going to have Dominic Pooney coming back. You're going to be having Ben Barch eventually, hopefully, be healthy. You're going to have Drew Moss, who's now on the roster, Matt Hennessy, Connor Colby. The 49ers, I think, are solid on the interior offensive line for now. And, I think they're probably going to stick with Matt Hennessy. I think they feel comfortable with Matt Hennessy. There might even be a world that exists where Hennessy gets some reps at center this season. We'll have to see. But overall, we'll see. We'll see what they do with some of the offensive line additions. Let's go through the whole list of moves. I thought one of the crazier moves was that the 49ers had released punter Thomas Morstead. So the 49ers currently don't have a punter, but Morstead took to his social media to let everyone know to relax. He said, so this to me, I would have to assume someone like Jacob Cowing is going to be placed on injured reserve. And so then once those players are placed on injured reserve, then they will make the circle back to a guy like Morstead. So I don't expect anything crazy there. But Morstead will be back. Let's look at all the moves in one spot. And so as you can see, the 49ers did release Robbie Chosen. I wouldn't mind having Robbie Chosen on the practice squad. Robbie Chosen doesn't strike me as someone who is going to be claimed. Again, you never know. Or wait, he was released, so he's free to sign wherever he wants. So because Robbie Chosen was claimed, he doesn't enter the waiver system. He can sign wherever he wants, including the 49ers practice squad. If I'm Robbie Chosen or I'm Russell Gage, I'm having to assume that is the plan because the 49ers currently don't have very many healthy wide receivers. So if you're one of these guys, Robbie Chosen, Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgins, Malik Turner even. I think Malik Turner showed a little bit in his situation with the 49ers in his final. But when you look at the 49ers wide receiver room, it's Juwan Jennings who's dealing with the calf. Kyle Shanahan did say he expects Juwan Jennings to be ready for week 1. But as it currently stands, we don't know what the status is of Juwan Jennings. Ricky Pearsall, obviously going to play, made the final roster. Sky Moore, who the 49ers traded for, made the final roster. Jacob Cowing, likely IR candidate. Jordan Watkins, dealing with a high ankle sprain, likely will miss week 1. Brandon Ayuk placed on reserve PUP, so he will miss the first 4 weeks of the season. Demarcus Robinson officially suspended for 3 games. So the 49ers are thin. If the season were to start now, they would have 2 wide receivers. Think about that. They would have 2 available guys who could play. Now, obviously, that isn't accounting for the practice squad and having those guys elevated from the practice squad, which is why I mentioned Russell Gage, Robbie Chosen, Isaiah Hodgins. It would make a lot of sense for them to want to sign with the 49ers practice squad because they will get playing time. And that gives them the opportunity to showcase their abilities for other teams or showcase their abilities for the 49ers to sign them to the final 53 when it all clears and is all finalized. But the 49ers only keep 5 wide receivers. They only keep 5, and Jacob Cowing likely is headed to IR. So another thing to also consider here is that I do think that the 49ers are potentially going to be probably a team that will be poking around to see what players were released. Malachi Corley was released today. Robert Saleh was crucial in the Jets drafting him. So maybe something there comes to fruition. I don't know. Malachi Corley obviously hasn't done anything in the league. But I mean, you really just never know. There are obviously going to be other options out there that the 49ers could look at in regards to adding some more pieces to the wide receiver room. So we'll see, man. We will see. But there's a lot of things. I don't think that this roster is close to being finalized. I think there are some other things that's going to pop off. I'm about to pull up the actual 53-man roster so we can all just kind of see. I think that would be a better visual than going through the list of players who aren't available. Obviously, when you look at some of the players that I think stood out, Junior Bergen, I'm not surprised by that. Junior Bergen didn't show me anything in training camp that made me believe that he needed to make the final roster. So again, like, when the 49ers drafted Junior Bergen, it wasn't a pick that I was super excited about, because you could have snagged a guy like Esapole with that pick, and he probably makes this roster just based on their current swing tackle situation. So again, I didn't love that selection in real time, but who knows? Maybe Bergen can stick around, and he could be a practice squad guy and could be a guy that contributes later on in his career. Would I keep Esapole over Pleasant? I think that would be easier to say if I saw them both in training camp. So I can't say that definitively, because I didn't get to watch Esa in real time like I did Austin. The thing that Austin Pleasant, I think, provides is he provides the ability to play left and right tackle and left and right guard. So I think that's where Austin Pleasant earns a roster spot for the 49ers, is he does have some position versatility. So here is the 49ers 53-man roster as it was cut. The 49ers keeping Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, only two quarterbacks. That to me is valid. I think that's on par. I got no concerns with that. I think that makes sense. Tanner Mordecai, Carter Bradley, those guys are practice squad guys at best. And I think Mac Jones is going to be one of the better backups in the NFL. So it's a good room, in my opinion. Even though it's just Brock and Mac, I think it's a good room. When you look at the running back room, the 49ers keep Christian McCaffrey, Brian Robinson Jr., Isaac Guerendo, Jordan James, and Kyle Juszczyk. I really do like the idea of the 49ers keeping El Jefe, Jeff Wilson Jr. on the practice squad. I think if you could keep Jeff, I think that would be one of the best practice squad running backs in the league. I thought he looked like his old self in preseason. So I would definitely want to see Jeff Wilson on the 49ers practice squad. I think he could be a guy that the 49ers potentially bring up and use throughout the year. So I think that Jeff Wilson would be a good addition to the 49ers practice squad. So I hope he sticks around. When you look at the 49ers tight end, George Kittle, Luke Farrell, Jake Tonges, this is the room that I also projected. So I don't think anything really here is a surprise. What I saw from Jake Tonges was his ability to play the Kyle Juszczyk role. I thought he actually had a phenomenal game against the Raiders as an H-back, and I think that's really what solidified Tonjes making the roster. So we know the 49ers paid Luke Farrell. He was a shoo-in. But also to Jake Tonjes, I saw enough from him to be like, yeah, he's going to make it over guys like Braden Willis and some of the other guys. We already talked about the wide receiver room. The wide receiver room, I think, is incomplete. I don't think they are done there. I think there's still plenty of work to do in that room. And it'll be fascinating to see if the 49ers land on any of the players that have been cut. So I do think that the 49ers will be kind of shifting that room around. For the offensive line, they kept 10. I'm glad with that number. I'm glad they kept 10. Trent Williams, Ben Bartch, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivitz. No surprises there. Spencer Burford, Drew Moss, Connor Colby, Matt Hennessy, Austin Pleasance. And again, the big one here is Drew Moss rising up the ranks and earning an active roster spot, which is phenomenal. If you guys don't remember, this dude was at the very end of the depth chart to start training camp. He was like the fourth string right guard. They had another guy that was in camp, Zach Johnson, playing ahead of him. So this guy beat out multiple players in order to win this spot. He beat out Zach Johnson. They cut him in around the preseason. Then the fact that Drew Moss beat out Nick Zakelj, to me, is impressive. I don't think Nick Zakelj had his best offseason, but I don't think he had his worst. I thought Zakelj improved over what he did last year in preseason and night and day from his rookie preseason. But ultimately, it wasn't enough. He was still making some mental mistakes, and I think that's ultimately where the 49ers kind of drew the line in the sand. Was you're a third-year player, you're still making some mental mistakes, you're still making some technical mistakes. We're going to go with the upside of the rookie, and we're gonna get younger at the position. We're going to get probably a little bit cheaper. I mean, probably not a significant amount, but Drew Moss does carry upside. So if the 49ers see this as the problem, though, is the 49ers going after Esapole is probably not likely. I don't think that I'll be able to have my cake and eat it too. I don't think I'll be able to have Drew Moss and Esapole on the same roster. And if I had to put myself in the 49ers shoes, the reason why Austin Pleasance, like I already mentioned, sticks around is because of his versatility, being able to play both tackle spots, being able to play both guard spots. I personally think he would be better at guard, but I think the 49ers like him as a tackle option. So although I do like me some Esapole, and I would love him on the roster, and I think he would be a very interesting developmental prospect. I don't know if the 49ers would do that. I really don't. So we'll see. But if they do put in a claim for Essa, I would have to say that you would have to swap out Austin Pleasance for Esapole. So will that happen? Not really sure, but we'll see. The 49ers kept 11 defensive linemen: Nick Bosa, Alfred Collins, CJ West, Michael Williams, Yetur Gross, Matos, Bryce Huff, Sam Okwuonu, Robert Beal Jr., Kalia Davis, Evan Anderson, Jordan Elliott. So the surprise for me with this room is keeping Robert Beal Jr. and not keeping Sebastian Valdez. That would have been the swap that I would have made. I have no other problem with any of this room. The other thing to consider is that Yetur Gross-Matos, who hasn't played 1 rep in preseason, in training camp, made the roster. I would have assumed they would have put him on a reserve PUP list or something like that. Maybe that means that he's closer to returning than we anticipate. I personally had YGM starting on PUP to open up a roster spot to just give him time to be able to get back. But yeah, I would my edit would have been swapping Robert Beal Jr. for Sebastian Valdez. I feel like with Bryce Huff and Sam Okwuonu, you got your speed rushers. I feel like once Yetur Gross-Matos and Mykel Williams come back, you got your dog defensive ends. And again, if you're new here, I quantify dog defensive ends as base down ends that will kick inside and rush the passer on third downs. So your Charles Omenihu role, your Arden Key role. For me, I just felt like I needed to name them because I constantly call it the Charles Omenihu role or the Arden Key role. So to me, it's the dog role. Mykel Williams, Yetur Gross-Matos, they fit that dog role on this defensive line. Your pass rushers, you got your interior guys. And I know they probably wanted an additional edge rusher over an interior defensive tackle because you did have Kalia Davis, Evan Anderson, Jordan Elliott, CJ West, and Alfred Collins. So they probably wanted to balance out the room a little bit more. But honestly, I probably would have kept Sebastian over Robert Beal. And I wouldn't say this. I would say Evan Anderson's pretty solid. Evan Anderson had a good camp. Evan Anderson was dealing with some injuries, but Evan Anderson, he's good. I wouldn't have gotten rid of Anderson. I think Anderson is a quality player. I would definitely say at this stage in the game, Anderson is a better player than Valdez, but I think they're very similar. I think Evan Anderson was a UDFA last year. I think they're very similar players. I think they have similar upside. I think Evan Anderson is a little bit more polished right now. Evan Anderson has done it in real NFL games, whereas Valdez is more of a developmental prospect. So I get their logic. I get why they made the decision they made based on the balance of the defensive line room. For linebackers, Fred Warner, D. Winters, Nick Martin, Luke Gifford, Tatum Bethune, I thought they might keep. So I think I had them keeping 6 linebackers and only 10 defensive linemen in my roster projection. Or no, I only had the 49ers keeping 5 cornerbacks. So in this situation, the 49ers kept 5 linebackers. They kept 6 cornerbacks: Deommodore Lenoir, Renardo Green, Upton Stout, Chase Lucas, Siran Neal, Daryl Luter Jr. So the Siran Neal one was interesting because I thought Dallas Flowers flashed more in training camp practice. However, when I did see Dallas Flowers get into some games, it felt like the moment was a little bit too big for him. And that was kind of my takeaway. Was he was a great practice player, got some starting reps, but when he got the start, it didn't feel like he acclimated a little as well. Felt like the lights were a little too bright. So I do hope Dallas Flowers does come back to the practice squad. I think he has some potential. So he would be a guy that I would like to keep around. Siran Neal, like I mentioned, didn't really flash for me all that much. Honestly, surprised that Daryl Luter Jr. Made the roster because I felt like he didn't have his best camp. But maybe the 49ers like his potential and like where he could potentially be in the future. And again, Chase Lucas was the one to I think defy the odds and make the final roster. We all know how he performed in training camp and in the preseason, and I think he really showcased that he could be a guy that is can be used in special teams, but can potentially be used in a pinch. So when I look at the overall cornerback room and their depth, I do believe that the starting cornerbacks will be Lenore, Green, and Stout. And if you have guys like Darrell Luter, Chase Lucas, I'm not going to be super confident that the 49ers have, great depth at cornerback, but we'll see how it plays out and if these guys need to be able to get into the game. When you look at the safety position, Malik Mustafa obviously starts the season on reserve PUP, so he will miss the first 4 weeks of the season. And one of the better stories of training camp has been Marquise Siegel and his kind of ascension. He's going to be a guy that could very well start for the 49ers, or at least play a lot and play a specialized role. The 49ers also have Jair Brown, who made the roster, Jason Pinnock, who is going to be heavily involved in this defense, and Richie Grant. Richie Grant makes the roster. So these are all guys that seem like they would carry a pretty substantial role in training camp. They all played a lot. And one of the things that I keep mentioning is one of the bigger takeaways of 49ers training camp for me was watching how Robert Saleh used Jason Pinnock. If you guys are familiar with Derwin James, and maybe it reminds me of Derwin James at Florida State. It reminds me of a guy who I don't even know what it is, like a joker role. Like I don't even know what it would be called when you kind of have that safety and that kind of lurker role, kind of patrolling the underneath. That also blitzes a lot. I see Jason Pinnock being a guy who is going to be all over the line of scrimmage. He's almost like another linebacker, if that makes sense. So I see Jason Pinnock as a guy who I don't really think 49er fans have yet to kind of see how he is going to be fully implemented. Because at practice, they had him doing some crazy stuff. So we'll see. We'll see how that translates to Sundays. But the 49ers also have two specialists made, Jake Moody, John Weeks, and Thomas Morstead, who was released but will likely be back when Jacob Cowing is on the active roster. So overall, nothing too crazy. I would say the biggest ones was probably Valdez. I thought Gibson actually showed quite a bit. I think if Gibson had a full training camp with the 49ers, maybe would have been a little bit different of a situation for him, but he had only been here for about a week or so. So, but I think within that week, Gibson had shown enough that I would like to see him back on the back on the practice squad with the potential to earn some reps as a guy who gets elevated. So I'm curious, now that we've kind of ran through and we've looked at the 49ers current 53-man roster, which we know is going to be changing, How would you grade the 49ers moves today in totality, all of them? How would you grade their moves? What do you think about their decisions that they've made? Drop your instant grades in the chat. Just want to see what you guys are thinking in regards to the moves that were made today. Right out the gate, seeing some B's coming through. B changed it from a B to B plus. I see a B minus. JM says wide receiver room is a D plus right now. Losing Valdez and keeping Cowing is what hurts their grades. C plus. A minus, should have kept Valdez. B, C minus, B plus, B, C. So if I had to throw a grade at it, I'd probably give it a solid B. I think majority of the moves that they made sense. I don't have a crazy issue with them, but again, I think JM's point, the wide receiver room's a little sketch. The wide receiver room is mad sketchy right now. And I think that is kind of the most concerning thing to me when I look at this roster is, like we talked about, the 49ers had a game today on the active, they would have 2 healthy wide receivers. So it is, I give it a B. I think it's solid. Like I think it's an above average. I think above average decisions were made, but there were still a couple decisions that were a little questionable. But overall, I'm mostly pleased with it. And again, shout out to the 49ers. They kept Drew Moss for me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate Drew Moss sticking around. I think that was a good decision. And I think that was someone that probably wouldn't have been able to come back around to the practice squad. So overall, solid. I'm not upset at it. There's definitely some questions still that remain. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I like the quarterback room. If I had to grade, let's do a quick grade of each room. If I had to grade the quarterback room, okay, so drop your grades of the quarterback room right now. I'm going to give it an A. With Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, that's a solid quarterback room. I think Mac Jones is going to be, like, arguably one of the best backups in the league. So A, quarterback room. And based on the chat, looks like you guys agree. When I look at the running back room, I'm gonna give. Let's switch gears to the running back room. I'm gonna give that A minus. I'm going to give it an A minus just because Isaac Guerendo's banged up, because Jordan James is banged up. I really like Jordan James. Just didn't get to see him in pads. Haven't seen him in pads yet, but I really liked what I saw from Jordan James without pads. And to me, he looked like a guy who'd be able to translate, but unfortunately just didn't see it yet. So I'm going to give the running back room an A minus. A minus, just, if we're just grading Brian Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, and Kyle Juszczyk, I'd give it an A plus. But with kind of the current state of Guerendo and James, I'm going to drop it down to A minus. When I look at the tight end room, it's hard to grade any tight end room and drop your grades for the tight end room. I'm really curious to see how you guys are going to grade the tight end room, because any room that has George Kittle in it should be an A plus because it's George Kittle. But the thing is, we're grading the room, and I don't know if I've seen enough from Luke Farrell yet. I know that the 49ers have been trying to replace Charlie Warner for 2 years. You guys know I've spent a lot of time talking about that. I don't think they've done it yet. With Luke Farrell. At least it's still TBD. I know they paid him to be that replacement, but I don't believe I've seen enough yet. So it's a challenging one, right? Because like I said, if you grade the tight end room, it's hard to grade it anything lower than an A because you have George Kittle. But if I had to grade, I probably graded an A minus, and it has nothing to do with George. The other guys I still have questions about, and they can answer some of those questions with a couple good performances early on in the season. But we'll see. We'll see about Farrell. We'll see about Tonjes moving forward. Now, the grade that I'm really interested in seeing from you guys, this one I think is going to be the most polarizing grade, is the wide receiver room. What is your grade for the 49ers wide? Someone said incomplete. That might be the best answer, to be honest with you. Drop your grades for the 49ers wide receiver room. Yeah, I think we're all kind of on the same page. He said, why for yuck? That's hilarious. That might be the best comment we've gotten so far. Why for yuck? Yeah, it's not pretty. It is not a pretty room. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. Yeah, I'm gonna go Y for yuck. That's my grade. I'm going Y for yuck, because it is, it's scary how it is now. Let's say all these guys were healthy, it would probably be fine. Juwan Jennings healthy, Ricky Pearsall healthy, healthy Cowling, a healthy Watkins, a healthy Sky Moore. If they were healthy, it'd probably be like a B minus. A healthy of these 5 is about a B minus. But the fact that half of them are hurt, it's either incomplete or Y for yuck. Because yuck, Brandon Ayuk won't be available for the first 4 weeks. Demarcus Robinson won't be available for the first 3 weeks. So not the best. I'm curious where you guys land on this next one. How would you grade the offensive line room? I'm genuinely curious to see how this is graded, because I know 49er fans in the offensive line room, one of the greatest battles I've seen between fans and the team. But I'm curious, how would you grade the 49ers offensive line room? So far, I see B minus, C plus, B minus because we have Brendel, B for O-line, C plus, B. All right, I think A minus. I think that's the first A. B plus. Strawberry's giving it a C. Vish says B plus. Could have done better at backup tackle, but Moss Colby is a win. Edgar throwing out an A. Oh, we got an F So wide-ranging opinions on the 49ers O-line. I like Jason's comment. It says, Brad, the O-line actually looks decent. A lot of continuity and promising backups. Give it a B. I'm right there with you, Jason. I'm going to give it a B too. I think that your comment is on point. I think you have Trent Williams remained healthy throughout the offseason. Ben Bartch has just been a big question mark because he's been hurt for a lot of the offseason. You have Dominic Pooney, who obviously, when healthy, is one of the top guards in the league. I do, again, as I've said all offseason, I believe that Colton McKivitz will take steps forward this year. I think we already did see some of those steps, even against Max Crosby versus the Raiders. So for the offensive line, I'm going to give it a B. You know, I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's great. I think it's solid. I like that the 49ers kept Drew Moss. That helped the grade a little bit. I think Matt Hennessy would be I really don't think the 49ers would feel the difference of Jake Brendel from Matt Hennessy. I mean, maybe small things that maybe we aren't aware of, they would be able to tell the difference. But when I watch Matt Hennessy, he reminds me of a quicker Jake Brendel. They're undersized centers, but I would say Hennessy's a little faster. He's got a little bit of a better first step get off. I think he's better at reach blocking than Brendel is. And that to me is where I see Brendel struggle the most in the run game, is trying to reach outside shades. He typically gets pushed back in those situations. But we'll see. So I'm okay with Hennessy. And again, Austin Pleasant, I get it. I understand why they're keeping him for the value that he provides. Defensive line room. What are we thinking with the D-line room? Lots of young players, a lot of unproven players. What would you grade the 49ers defensive line room? Obviously heavily weighted by Nick Bosa being in the room. Invader saying A. D-line, if they stay healthy, can destroy the NFL. A. B minus, C plus, A, B, B until proven. B plus. Mike says, I defer to Brad on this. D minus, C plus, B minus, B plus, S for Salah. B plus. All right, I see your grades coming in. I would say if I had to give it a grade, I would give it a B plus. I think that Nick Bosa is Nick Bosa. Obviously, he is going to sway the grade towards an A because he's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. But I think with what I've seen from Mykel Williams in training camp, I think that Mykel is going to be just fine. I think initially when the 49ers drafted Mykel, I didn't love the idea of it because I was in my head thinking speed rusher. When you get out of your head that Mykel is not a speed rusher, he plays the dog role, as I call it, base down edge, kick inside rush over the guard. I think that role is going to fit really well. The reason why I think that role is going to fit really well is because you have guys like Bryce Huff and Sam Okwuonu that I think are going to come screaming off the edge. I think that Bryce Huff and Sam Okwuonu, they might combine for 10 plus sacks together. I really do think that those two guys, watching them all throughout training camp, I don't think people have really put enough emphasis on those two. I think those two are going to literally be like you know, they're like those police police dogs that, they're just, you're holding on to the collar and you just let go and they shoot out. Like, that's the way that I look at Huff and Sam O, is that these guys are going to come in, they're going to play in situations where they're only like, I would say 80% of their snaps are going to be rushing the passer. So I do believe that those two guys are going to have big seasons for the San Francisco 49ers. I think their presence are going to be felt very strongly, especially if you are getting push up the middle from Alfred Collins, CJ West, Evan Anderson, Kalia Davis, Jordan Elliott. Those guys push the pocket from the middle. The other guys collapse it. I think that the 49ers defensive line will be pretty solid. So I think we're all kind of in agreement there. So from the linebacking room, we go to linebackers: Fred Warner, D. Winters, Nick Martin, Luke Gifford, Tatum Bethune. I'm curious to see. I think Invader's throwing out A++. Again, this is one of those rooms heavily weighted by an All-Pro, the best linebacker in football, Fred Warner. So the big thing for me this training camp, when evaluating this linebacker room, it all hinged on D. Winters. It all hinged on him. I really didn't know what version of D. Winters that we were going to get, and I am so happy with what we got. D. Winters was arguably one of the best defensive players in training camp, in my opinion. I think he was a guy you might even say most improved on the team. I think D. Winters really came into his own. I really do believe that anything that we might have missed from Dre Greenlaw, I think D. Winters has all of it. I think he has the speed. I think he has that aggressiveness that we have come to expect from a Dre Greenlaw. And I think those were the things that I think we were all worried about. And I do believe that D has it. I think D is going to have an amazing season. So I'm pretty excited about it. He was a guy that I have heavily questioned. I did not crown D. Winters heading into this training camp. I heavily questioned him. And I'm so pleased that he answered every single question. Where I'm heading into this year, like, we're good. We're Fred and D, not tripping at all. I feel like we're great. And then you have Nick Martin, who's obviously shown throughout the preseason his ability to get better and get better. Nick Martin is going to be just fine. I think he's going to be a guy that will eventually kind of be on that path where, we'll be talking about Martin like we talk about D. Winters right now. So just give him a year or two. And then Tatum Bethune also flew under the radar this training camp. I thought Tatum Bethune had a really good camp. One of the things where Tatum Bethune stands out is in the run game. His ability to go sideline to sideline. You saw a little bit when he popped Ashton Jeanty. He's a good run defender. Like, he gets the angles, he gets all of it. I'm not upset with that. You guys know I was a big fan of Chaz Surratt. I really thought Jalen Graham had his best camp so far. But I think that speaks to Tatum Bethune. I think Tatum Bethune really did have a good camp. I think he really did earn that job. And so I feel good about it. I feel good about this room. Luke Gifford, the 49ers, definitely is probably going to be a guy that gets first crack at the Sam position, next to D. Winters and next to Fred Warner. That's basically how he was used throughout training camp. And he seemed to do decently well. But I think once Nick Martin gets his legs under him, he has the ability to kind of fill that role potentially. So overall, I like that. I like the linebacker room. I would have, for me, it would have been a toss up between Luke Gifford and Chaz Surratt. That would have been my consideration for the linebacker room. I really thought Chaz Surratt had a pretty solid offseason, and I probably would have swapped Surratt for Gifford, but Gifford also does provide a special teams element that I think he was ultimately signed for. So my hope is that Chaz comes back to the practice squad. I do like him. I do think he performed well, and I do think he flashed. So we'll see what happens with him. All right, let's get through these last couple rooms. How would you grade the 49ers cornerback room? Drop your letter grades in the chat. Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, Upton Stout, Chase Lucas, Saran Neal, Daryl Luter Jr. I'm very curious about this particular grade because I think this room is a bit of a split room. I think that the top half of Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, Upton Stout, I like that. I do. I think Upton Stout is a dog. You guys saw the reports. You saw it. Unfortunately, I don't think he played in preseason, if I'm not mistaken. He might have played in the first one. But you guys saw that Upton Stout's a dog. Like, that's a real thing. Upton Stout was arguably trending towards being one of the best defensive players of training camp before he got injured. But he was a guy that when the pads came on, he got better. And that's pretty amazing for a guy who's 5'8". So I do believe that Stout is very stout. He was one of my favorite players to watch throughout training camp. Chase Lucas, we obviously know about him. Saran Neal, Daryl Luter Jr. Daryl Luter and Saran Neal didn't pop for me at training camp. So I would assume that these guys are, going to be more special. I don't know. The way that I look at it is if the 49ers have to use anyone else other than Lenore, Green, or Stout, you're going to feel that a little bit. But if those three guys can stay healthy all year, I like this room. I like this room a lot. So I would give the cornerback room B plus. And again, it's not because of the top half. The top half I like. The bottom half kind of drops the grade a little bit. So top 3 A. Bottom half C. So I'll meet you in the middle. B, kind of B area. So that's how I'm getting to my grade on that one. A, C, meet in the middle. So I'll give that one a B. And I guess it's not our last room. I guess we got one more room after this, but let's get through it. Safety. How are we grading the safeties? Marquise Siegel, Jair Brown, Jason Pinnock, Richie Grant. I'm fascinated by how you guys think this one will go. What is your grade for the 49ers safety room? Keeping in mind Malik Mustafa starting the season on reserve PUP. I see an A, a C plus, D plus, B plus. We're kind of all over the place. B plus, B minus, B. I do think we're going to miss Hufanga, but I think we'll be all right. B plus, B. So it feels like B is around. Oh, we got an F. C plus, C. Once Mustafa gets back, B plus. C says doesn't look great. B minus, A. B minus, A. Jason says too young at the safety position, in my opinion. Yeah, I would probably, if I had to give a grade. So I think I am of this camp. I do believe if Jason Pinnock is healthy, I think Pinnock is going to have a huge year. So I grade Pinnock probably a little bit higher than most. Jair Brown on shaky ground. I think Brown has the potential, but he's just not showing it right now. It feels like I don't know what's going on with Jair. I hope that it clicks for him, because that's where I feel like I was talking about this with someone recently. I was like, dude, Jair Brown was a stud in college. He was awesome. Like, where is that player? Where did that guy go? Not that he's disappeared. It just feels inconsistent. If he can flip that switch and be consistently that guy for stretches, for long periods of time, I have no concerns for Jair. That's but he also has the other part where he plays and misses tackles, misses angles, makes bad reads. So he's in this middle ground for me, like where there are good moments of Jair and there are bad moments of Jair, and he's kind of float. And that, you don't want to be there as an NFL player. You got to be consistent. You don't want to be floating. You want to be reliable. What are you going to put out on that field every time you step on it? What can we expect from you? So that's kind of the way that I look at it. So, and then Marquise Siegel, one of the biggest surprises, I would say, of training camp was Marquise Siegel. I was not anticipating this guy to come out and do what he did. He is, I had noticed early on, this Siegel guy's running with the ones a lot. He's running with the ones a lot. Like, it wasn't necessarily like flashing from like a big play standpoint in training camp, but I'm like, dang, that's Siegel again. Siegel's running with the ones. That's Siegel and Pinnock. Or, they were rotating a lot. So that's why I didn't put a lot of weight into it, because there's a lot of Richie Grant with the ones, a lot of Jair, a lot of Pinnock, a lot of Siegel. They were rotating a bunch. And I was just like, but Siegel is playing with the. I remember one day they put out a package, and they had Jair, Pinnock, and Siegel on the field at the same time, and it was Siegel and Jair playing deep safety, and it was Pinnock playing like this robber role. Like, I don't even know what to do, this joker, like just floating around and then blitzing up the middle, blitzing off the side. So I think Pinnock's going to have a big year. So if I had to grade this room, B minus. I'm going to give it a B minus, because Richie Grant, question mark. Marquise Siegel, question mark, but arrow up. Jair Brown, question mark. Jason Pinnock, green check, thumbs up. I'm in on Pinnock. I'm in on Pinnock. Everyone else kind of. So C plus. I'm going to give it a C plus. I'm going to give it a C plus. Safety C plus. But I'm going to give it a C plus, because again, I'm higher on Pinnock than I think most people. Like, I think this right here, B is crazy for one of the worst safety rooms in the league. I like Pinnock. I think Pinnock's going to have a big year. So again, I'm higher on Pinnock than most, but you see they're catching on to me. They're catching on to me. They know what I've been waiting for. They're catching on. Don't grade them yet. Don't grade them yet. We're not. Don't grade them yet. All right. Let's grade them. Special teams room. You know what time it is. Drop your letter grades in the chat. 49ers don't have a punter. Jake Moody and John Weeks. Drop your grades, baby. Drop your grades in the chat. Oh boy. Man, not good. I don't even need to pull them up on the screen. I don't need to pull up the grades on the screen. This I think is just this one comment. I think is solid representation of what the chat looks like. If for whatever reason, like you can't see the chat right now as we're grading the special teams room, I think this is representative of the chat. And I wish I could say, oh, you negative 49er fans. Like, no, I get it. I get it. They don't have a punter. Granted, the punter is going to come back onto the roster, so it's more of a formality. I like John Weeks, but again, it's a long snapper. And obviously, this grade is being weighted by Jake Moody. So yeah, I would say if I had to grade this room, I would say I would grade it a U for unconfident. I'm not confident in this room. I am. And obviously, when I say this room, I think we know who I'm talking about. I don't have the confidence. And I think that is one of the most challenging things with this particular position is that it is about confidence. It's almost the entire makeup of the position is having unflappable confidence. And the whole fan base, I'm not sure I've ever experienced this, because when you really think about it and you go back into the 49ers history, the 49ers have had some pretty damn good kickers, man. You think of Robbie Gould. You think of David Akers. You think of Phil Dawson. I mean, they've had some, and I think that's part of the issue, is that kicker has been such a non-issue for the 49ers amidst so many issues that have occurred over the last couple decades, that this team is now at least in a place to want to win now, or ready to win now. And I think the fan base has never been more unconfident with the kicker position. And we'll see, man. We will see. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, again, the fact that I have to say hopefully it works out, again, I think just reiterates the lack of confidence that we have for the room. So it is what it is. It's gonna be an interesting season. I don't know if Jake Moody finishes the year on the roster, I do think they're going to give him that shot clearly. And I do think that this was the most likely outcome from the beginning. We talked about this. He's a third-round draft pick. The 49ers are trying their best to not give up on the talent because clearly I do believe they are assigning the issues to his confidence. And so they're trying very, very hard to rebuild his confidence, to draw out the talent. But again, that's just the hardest part of being in the NFL because confidence is fragile. And once you lose it, it's really hard to get back. So we'll see, man. We will see. And see, I think what would have really helped the fan base with that situation was him having that game winner and then coming out against the Chargers and just nailing everything. And you know Moody's kicks, his kicks that are good still make you feel like they're going to miss. I don't understand how to explain it. Like I was watching one of the other kickers, I think it was Dicker the kicker. When it comes off his foot, you can tell almost instantly that it's going to go through because it is on a straight line. With Moody, he kicks it and it instantly hooks. So it like you get this instant shot of, oh no. And then it goes, ooh, or ooh, and it like hooks. It hooks either off his foot or at the end towards the upright. And it's such an unsettling feeling as an outside observer, you know, who's watching it. You're just like, ooh, like it's an instantaneous, like, oh no, he's gonna miss. And then you're like, oh my gosh, he made it. And I know for fans, that's not a good feeling. I know for fans, it's a situation that doesn't breed confidence. And that's the hard part. It's like even his makes are nerve-wracking. They're not like, oh, he kicked it clean, it went clean off the foot, it's going straight down the pipe. It's like, oh. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see where we go from there. But yeah, overall, I missed the super chat. Boxing fan, appreciate the super chat. Said realistic trade the Niners can still make. That is an interesting one. I feel like if the 49ers were going to be making trades, they would have done it already, because the thing that I think makes the trade with the 49ers realistic is the cost. I don't think the 49ers are going to make a move if it costs significantly. So again, look at what Keenan Allen signed for. Look at what Amari Cooper signed for. Not a lot. And, you know, the 49ers were poking around, but ultimately it didn't land there. With the Brian Robinson trade, you know, they didn't even pay his full salary. The Commanders paid most of it, or at least I would say like a third of it. And it was a 6th-round draft pick. That to me is where the 49ers are at. And those trades I feel like already went through. So when it comes to realistic trades, I don't think there are a ton. Like, because like Jacoby Myers, for example, he wants a contract. That's part of the problem with trading or getting a wide receiver that costs more than Juwan, is that you're going to alienate Juwan. And that is the fine line that I think the 49ers are walking, is because if the 49ers are going to say, listen, Juwan, we're not going to pay you this upcoming season, but we need you to play. His contract is like low level wide receiver contract. Like he is underpaid even by Juwan standards. Even if he was a wide receiver 2 or 3, he's still underpaid. So that's the problem, is if the 49ers aren't going to pay him and then they bring in someone else who costs more than him, where they pay that player and not Juwan, I think that's the sketchiness of going out and trading for Jakobi Meyers, who's going to earn more, who needs a contract and would probably earn more than Juwan. So I really think that's the balance. I really think that's the balance here. It has nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with maintaining a solid relationship with Juwan, because if you bring in another wide receiver, you're taking away targets from him. You're taking away opportunities for him to earn money in free agency. So that's the balance. If you're trying to get Juwan to play on this deal, you can't really bring in a wide receiver that is better than him. So it's an interesting dynamic. I think it's a dynamic that most fans don't think about, but I think it's the human element behind football, is that's where they're up against it. So that's why I don't think they've made the moves. That's why I don't think they've signed Amari. I don't think that's why they signed Keenan. So we'll see. We shall see. But yeah, that was a long one. I haven't done a live that long in a long time, but of course it called for it. 49ers cut their final roster today. They get it down to 53. And yeah, here we are. So what is the difference between waived and released? When you get waived, you can be claimed on waivers. All 32 teams will have the opportunity to place a waiver claim on you. If you are released, you can sign wherever you want. You don't go into the waiver process. You are like a free agent. You just go pick and choose where you want to go. If you enter the waivers, you don't control where you go until you pass through waivers. So that is the difference. But appreciate everyone for tapping in, continuing to follow along with the channel. We're close, man. 53-man roster has been cut. That means real 49ers football is right around the corner. Am I still doing post-game live streams? Yes. I didn't do it last week, but yeah, we'll be doing it. Appreciate y'all. Grab your cookies on the way out. Smash that like button. You already know the vibes. I'll see you guys on the other side. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to